Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. It's Thursday. Apologies, no video yesterday. There wasn't a lot to talk about, and also I just fancied a cheeky day away from the streaming. I hope you guys are all possibly capable of doing me a little favor before we get into the show. Please smash the like button for me if you enjoyed the video. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment or two like you always do. And I appreciate you all so much for the engagement. Let's start with a little story about a man called Mathys Tel, shall we, guys? A man called Mathys Tel. Apparently, he is unsettled in London, and he is of high interest to a couple of teams around Serie A, Roma being the first target. Gazzetta dello Sport have released an article, or at least a report on this one. I'm going to take a little quick butchers at it. That Tottenham's Mathys Tel, according to them, is Roma's primary target for the left wing in January, but a loan deal seems the only feasible option, as Spurs are unwilling to discuss a permanent transfer. Roma have set their sights on the versatile Tottenham striker Tel, who, according to Gazzetta, is unhappy in North London, having been left out of the Champions League phase. The Frenchman has scored 2 goals in 11 appearances across all competition this term, but has only collected 359 minutes of football on the pitch. Wednesday's printed edition of Gazzetta dello Sport reports that Tel is Roma's primary target for January, as the Giallorossi look to boost Gianpiero Gasperini's options in attack. Apparently, Gasperini will be looking for 2 attacking reinforcements in the winter transfer window, 1 centre-forward, possibly Josh Zirkzee, and 1 winger. Listen, I'm going to be entirely honest on this one. I just don't see it happening in any way, shape, or form for a number of reasons. First and foremost, if the stories are true with the way that whole deal was structured, which was that essentially we got that loan deal. Do you remember all the way back in January, end of January, when Tottenham fans were all aboard the Mathys Tel train? The idea was that he was going to go to Tottenham, then he was going to go to Manchester United. We thought we were losing him to Manchester United. Everybody then lost their minds at the ownership, as we always seem to do in these situations. And then when it turned out that he was coming back to Tottenham, you had all of the Manchester United fan bases, the Mark Goldbridges. You had people like the guys from Arsenal AFTV saying, how are we letting Mathys Tel go to Tottenham? What a player, what a player. We were all happy for about 30 seconds until it transpired that it was a loan deal, and the only way the option was going to be triggered was if Mathys Tel wanted to stay. And the reaction to that outcome was the fan base was saying, well, he's just using us. He's not going to, it's a nothing burger. We haven't really signed him. Then we saw him playing in the Ange Ball system in the pathetic finish to our league campaign that transpired. And I always stood by him as a fan, because I thought he was one of the only few players that were trying in that last few months of our Premier League campaign. And I thought he put in a relatively better performances than everybody else in terms of effort, in terms of discipline, and in terms of trying to prove his point. Obviously, it didn't work out. And in terms of, a fantastic finish to the season in the league. And then this season as well, he seems to have been a little bit cast aside by most of the fan base. I think missing the open goal in the Newcastle pre-season friendly, obviously missing the penalty in the Super Cup. I think for a lot of people was enough of a reason to kind of to launch onto one on him. And if there is any sort of lack of happiness in the player, I think a lot of it will be partially because obviously he didn't make it into the Champions League squad. And I think because the fan base, I think he received some racial abuse as well, didn't he? Which was horrendous. I think that there is maybe some sort of appetite or some reasons to believe that there's a chance he might not be happy because he's not playing enough minutes, as the article suggests. However, I also believe that he is going to be a mainstay for the next, until the end of the month, until the end of December at least, until we get to January, and we'll see what will happen. But in a nutshell, we only have Dane Scarlett, Mathys Tel, and Richie that we can sort of draw upon. And Richalison right now, I know he scored a goal against Manchester United, but he really isn't putting in the effort, putting in the performances that kind of make him clear favourite above any of those 3. Dane Scarlett, well, look, never puts in a bad shift for Tottenham when he pulls on a shirt, but I think that most fans would probably say that he, let me know your thoughts on this one, but most fans would say that he's 3rd in the pecking order. And Mathys Tel also scored a couple of goals in his relatively few minutes that he's had this season. So I think that there's every reason to suggest and to suspect that he will be, quite an essential player as we get through this this next period. Obviously, we've got to play Arsenal on Sunday. Then we've got to go to PSG, and he's not going to be a part of that squad. Although we still haven't actually sort of reworked that Champions League squad. The fact that Kolo Muani is out injured for now until probably late January, I think that there is a strong call for him to be placed into the Champions League squad. I don't know why the club haven't done that. They do get that ability to do that before the squad then gets reshaped for the latter stages at the end of the January window. And so I would expect that would happen as well. But you can imagine that Tottenham are probably going to see a lot of minutes out from Mathys Tel either on Sunday. If they do that, make that decision, then in the PSG game, obviously at the moment that's a no. And then certainly Fulham as well. So there's no reason to suspect that he won't get minutes. And hopefully if he gets some decent outcomes, then he'll be happier. I would also say that it's madness that Tottenham would loan him given the same circumstances with our injuries, right? There is no Dominic Solanke and there's no he's not even on the pitch, or maybe he's just on the pitch, but he certainly isn't participating in those international break friendlies that we did behind closed doors, etc. Obviously, Kolo Muani's out for a long time. And really, I don't know where else we go in terms of our options. So, yeah, this notion that Roma might be interested, well, that makes sense. I think he'll be a very good player in Serie A. I still think he'll be a very good player in the Premier League. I just think he's taking a long time to acclimate. But I think we have to stick with that one. And if it's true that Tottenham are also not willing to entertain any offers for the player on a permanent, then I think that goes to show some level of support for the player as well, and the belief that he will become a very good player. But things take time. People develop at their own stages and their own pace, and he's only 20 years old. So I think we should all go a little bit easy on that particular story. So I don't buy it, but I certainly don't buy a loan deal either, unless Tottenham have the ability and the capability to bring in 2 or 3 different forwards in January, which of course just isn't going to happen. But one of those particular names in that area of the pitch that keeps cropping up is, of course, Antoine Semenyo. There's a decent article out on the Daily Mail this morning where reporters are chiming in with their thoughts on who he should go to. And Matt Barlow of the Daily Mail has said that he thinks he should and will go to Tottenham. He said he thinks unquote, he would fit Spurs perfectly. I imagine most teams in the Premier League could find a role for him in the current form. He's strong and quick, very much in the mould of a player Thomas Frank likes. He's versatile, and most coaches like a player who can operate in different positions, for sure, across the front line. I can see Semenyo on the Spurs left. His pace and power are counterweight to his Ghana teammate Mohamed Kudus on the right. Neither Tel nor Odegaard have nailed that position down since Son Heung-min left for LA. Xavi Simons looks more natural in the centre, and Brennan Johnson is so much more of a goal threat from the right. Richalison can play there, but he's not a wide man. The issue at Spurs, though, would be that having invested a combined 70 million in Odegaard and Tel and spent 52 on Simons, would they spend more again on Semenyo, who would compete for the same roles in the team and block their progress? It's obviously a viable and reasonable sort of suggestion. We have spent a lot of money in those sorts of players. We spent a lot of money on Brennan Johnson, though, only a couple of years ago, and we weren't shy about spending an extra 55 million or whatever it was on players like Mohamed Kudus. So I don't think whilst it's fine to suggest it, I don't think it holds much weight. And I think that certainly Tottenham have got the money. We put £100 million in the cash injection in last month. We also had the 90 million payday loan thing that came in as well. That was probably more just for cash flow purposes, but having that liquidity and having the wiggle room on the PSR, we are probably one of just a few clubs that actually have the ability to pay whatever the structure of that £65 million clause looks like. If it's 65 million in January, but every penny of it has to go up front, well then, I would be surprised if every team has that liquidity to be able to do that on their books, and Tottenham certainly do. Either a team like Chelsea, I don't know why Chelsea would need another winger. They have too many anyway. But if they were to go and do that, then they still have to get their UEFA squad, their squad sort of transfer imbalance correct. So I'd be surprised if they can do it. Liverpool, well, look, the argument about Liverpool, which one of the other journalists here makes, Lewis Steele, he says that they've spent 446 million in the summer, so another shiny forward would invite criticism from rivals. I don't know why they would care about that. But he basically says that's the only real reason that there would be an issue, is the concern around whether or not it's fair or reasonable for them to spend money. If they can spend it, if they have the cash, if they have the liquidity, and if they have the wiggle room on the PSR, which I'm sure they do, then you could make the argument. What I would say, and I'm more than happy, by the way, to recognise the pecking order politics of where we sit in the footballing pyramid relative to the other teams that are looking at this guy. And as I've always said, like, kind of like have it as put it as your dream, buy a lottery ticket. You've got to be in it to win it, but don't sort of rest on the outcome of that being the only one that will make you happy. And that's, I think, the reason why Tottenham Hotspur are looking in other directions, like Iliman Ndiaye, a player that I've spoken about to you guys for ages. I love him. I'm glad to see that Tottenham are sniffing around that talent, although PSG are as well. So, maybe that will be, if that's an outcome that's more likely, I could probably foresee it. If there was an interest in Everton letting him go for the right price. Obviously, we're looking at Ademola Lookman, although for what it's worth, I'll come back to the Semenyo story, but just briefly on the Ademola Lookman story. Apparently, it's not just Galatasaray now that are also looking at Ademola Lookman. It's also the two other teams in Turkey. And Turkish football, we have to sort of, take a second to... I don't know, just sort of challenge the notion here of where these guys get their money. Don't forget, I think Fenerbahce might be... it's Besiktas is the team that's the other team that are looking at Ademola Lookman. But I'm not sure of Besiktas' annual revenues, but I can tell you that Fenerbahce's annual revenues last year was something like 112 million euros, which is about the same as Leicester City. And yet they seem to always have enough money, wiggle room on their wage bill with that interesting tax law to be able to attract these players. Turkish football surely are throwing a hell of a lot of money into the big teams to try to make them more competitive, to try to raise the profile of the league. But at the same time, all of these exposés around, the things that happened with Jose Mourinho, those text messages around the kind of collusion of some sort of dark forces over there trying to get him out. Also, of course, the betting scandals, the referees, the players, all of that stuff. It doesn't paint a good picture on Turkish football. And so, I'm not sure how many players are really going to necessarily worry about that, but it certainly might be a thing that will be a consideration for certain players and whether they want to go there. But yeah, Ademola Lookman, of course, is another name that Tottenham are looking at, and that story won't go away either. The Kenan Yıldız one, I've seen some reports out today, guys, that are basically saying that unless there's a monster offer and Juve have a chance to replace him, there really is no desire to let him go. Obviously, he does have that sort of contract imbalance where he's wanting 6 million euros a year for his new contract, and Juve are only willing to offer him 5 million euros a year in pounds. That's about 80 grand a week. As I say, that's relatively chump change for Premier League level footballers of his standard and caliber. And so whilst you might think, well, Tottenham can make him an offer he can't refuse in that regard and also use the Paratici thing, I'm pretty sure that if there was a realistic availability for that player to be leaving in January, then there'd be a number of teams that would be able to put their hand up and offer him all the gold that he can eat relative to his expectations in Juve. Of course, the player doesn't want to leave. He loves Juve. Massive fan of the whole Del Piero thing. I think he was his hero. So I'd be very surprised. We know that Malik Fofana is also injured at the moment. He strained his ankle ligaments back in, October? And so he'll be out until the end of the window. And so, that will be a difficult one. Also, whilst I absolutely rate him, similar sort of story is with Takefusa Kubo, another player that Tottenham have been linked with for the last week and a half, non-stop. I just have a concern, not with the player's ability, but with the player's physicality and the fit for the Premier League. Although, as I have always said to you guys, the trend towards bigger, stronger, faster in the Premier League, it's definitely a pendulum that has swung that direction, but the pendulum always does sort of figure itself out and come back. So how long this will be a talking point around, you have to really always be considering physicality and athleticism as just as much of a priority as someone's technical ability and what they can offer in terms of specific value. I don't know how long that will be a part of the conversation, but for right now, it really very much is. So I'd be surprised if Tottenham were to look in that direction. But listen, stranger things have happened, and it doesn't matter what I want. It matters what Thomas Frank wants. And speaking of which, I did watch a TNT video about Thomas Frank this morning when he was having an interview with Owen Hargreaves, and they were talking about the need to work hard. Like everything, you can have all of the different ingredients that you want, but hard work in the tackle, hard work in the second ball is a non-negotiable. And I think that's it. Whenever I do hear Thomas Frank talking to these sorts of people in tactical analyses of what he's doing, what he's trying to achieve, it does reassure me that I think we have a guy that really does understand the game. And like I say, I have challenges and I have questions around the approach that we take to football. But when I do hear him speak in detail about the specifics of whatever we're trying to achieve, I always come away feeling a little bit reassured that we have a guy that really is a student of the game and really does understand what's going on and where those kind of incremental margins can be found to sort of take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves in a very difficult game of chess that football has become in the Premier League. So that notwithstanding, I still expect my club at home at least to play with some level of attraction and some level of positivity, or more than we're currently seeing. But again, like I say, I'm patient enough, and I'm certainly not throwing the baby out with the bathwater when I get a little bit impatient in the moment when I see performances at home that we've seen recently. Anyway, back to the Semenyo story. So I went off on a major steer there. Lewis Steele, as I say, of Liverpool, he basically said that at the end, like the only reason why Liverpool wouldn't want to get him is because of like the amount of money that they've already spent. And I think that same argument has been levied there by Matt Barlow regarding Tottenham's forward players as well. And I don't think it's a relevant argument. If the manager thinks that he's the guy to build around, then fair enough. What I would say, though, as an extension, is if he is to come in, Semenyo, and become immediate sort of left-wing choice, then it begs the question, what happens to Cody Gakpo? You know, is Cody Gakpo, who's a little bit inconsistent, but certainly on his day is an absolute baller, is he going to be happy when he's already getting limited minutes, when Ekitike plays out on the left-hand side, if Isak is going to start? And I think you're going to see that eventually when Isak finds his feet and lands. I think you will, in all likelihood, see some rotation where Ekitike plays in the 9, but I think Ekitike naturally likes to hang off the left-hand side anyway. And so if they were to bring in a Semenyo as well, does that really kind of limit the amount of minutes that Cody Gakpo is going to get in a Liverpool shirt? I would argue yes. And then I would say, well, then what's the natural next step for Cody Gakpo? And would that be an exit from the football club? And if the argument lands to a possibly, which I think it does, then I would be very much on board with the next question being, where does he go? Is he a player that you would like to see at Tottenham? Let me know, because I think that Cody Gakpo is a top draw player, and I don't think he would necessarily go to a team of Liverpool standards. So if he drops down to the sort of the next run, again, he's on a decent salary, which won't be able to be matched by many teams around Europe. He might go back he might go to Germany, he might go to Spain or something for sure. I'm not going to get into that. But if there was a possibility, let me know whether in a world where Semenyo was to end up at Liverpool and Cody Gakpo was to end up being a little bit his nose put out of joint, is that a sort of name that you would like to see at Tottenham? There's no links to it. I'm just putting it out there as a speculation. And for me, the answer is 100%. I think he's physical, he's strong, he's fast, he's technical, and he can hang off the left-hand side and do really good things. He is a little bit inconsistent, though, I will definitely grant. Nathan Salt on this Daily Mail article is also talking about Manchester United being the option. And he makes a kind of really interesting point that Manchester United are clearly looking for players and are always interested. Manchester United's names are always coming up in whenever Tottenham are linked with the player. United seem to be linked with them too. And you know that obviously Man United still have a draw and they look a little bit more solid and settled than they have done over the last couple of years, where they still haven't struggled to attract some of the best players out there. And so you would be concerned about having to go toe-to-toe with United in a battle for certain players. I'm not sure that Semenyo is one of those. And I think that the answer lies in what Nathan Salt here has said, which is essentially the system that Amorim plays doesn't really allow for Semenyo. He plays a 3-4-2-1 with 2 10s, and obviously spent a lot of money on Cunha, Matheus Cunha, and Bryan Mbeumo to be their number 10 for years to come. Mason Mount is still a fan favourite still a firm favourite rather of Ruben Amorim's. And so where is there room for Semenyo? He's not a 10, is he? I mean, I'm sure he can play there, but he's certainly better off on the left or the right. And United don't play with wing forwards, so unless you were to play him as a wing back, then, which I don't think Semenyo would be up for. I mean, he'd be fantastic at it, but I don't think that would be him. And I think that, again, if he's got lots of options, is he really going to buy into the Manchester United project when he doesn't even get to play his favourite position? I would say probably not. So I'm pretty confident that Manchester United won't be the team that attracts Semenyo, but we shall see. Anyway, let's move on to the next story for you guys, and that is, of course, Jan Bissouma. Inter Milan, left-footed, left-sided centre-back, valued at 40 million pounds, give or take. A wonderful. Wait a second. I always make this mistake. Is Jan Bissek left-footed? I'm not sure if he is. No, he's not. He's not. Sorry, he's right-footed, but can play in the back two or a back three. He has played on the left-hand side and has played on the right-hand side as well. Another centre-back option that Tottenham are looking at, a top talent. I really do rate this guy. I think actually, from memory, most of his minutes comes off the right-hand side. So if Tottenham are looking at him, then again, it's just another centre-back that we are looking to bring in. That for me, it must be with the intention of moving to a back three where you can have the physicality that then can cope in the corners as well. Good in the air, he's strong, he's fast, he's very, very capable. I don't think that Tottenham need any more right-footed players. I think from memory, guys, we only have 4 left-footed players in the team. Micky, sort of left-dominant players. Micky van der Ven, Udogie, Kudus, I believe, and maybe that's it. And Ben Davies, right? So I think that Tottenham need to find some left footers. It's always nice to have a left-footed 10 as well to keep defenders guessing. Oh, sorry, and Kulusevski will be the other one, wouldn't he? Sorry, Kulusevski. There you go. Maybe there's 5 then. But Jan Bissek, an interesting one again for me. The logic though, when you already have right-sided, right-footed players in Radu Dragusin and Kota Takai, who can play a little bit of both sides, and Vuskovic, who, by the way, I've been looking at Vuskovic's data and stats. He has actually played, I think, 65% or 60% of his minutes now on the left-hand side for Hamburg. So despite being right-footed, I did suggest this a couple of months ago. You've got a player there that's young enough, that has got so much talent, so much potential, that if he's trained and treated and utilised on the left-hand side, then hopefully that will force him to improve on his left foot, his capabilities, and then you might have just an unbelievably valuable asset. Not only is he a fantastic player, but a player that can play in that more difficult spot, the left foot, the left-handed side of the back two or the back four or the back three, and someone that over time will surely become more and more proficient with his left foot, and then you can essentially call him ambipedal, which would be a ticket to £100 million player for sure. In other news, Castello Luqueba, I did bring that to your attention a couple of days ago. That story is out all over German media again today. RB Leipzig's left-footed, left-sided centre-back, a player that I've liked for years. When he was back in France, I thought he was unbelievable. When Tottenham were looking at Bastoni under Conte, and we didn't get him, I was saying, what about Luqueba? He ended up going to RB Leipzig. He hasn't unimpressed at all. Very, very solid. Good, great long balls on him. Great passing. Can carry the ball as well. Very strong in the air. Very good in the tackle. His positional sense is very, very good as well. German football likes to kind of specialise, in my opinion, on positional awareness. And he is a beneficiary of that. And that story won't go away either. So interesting stuff. Let me just see if there's anything else before I let you go. There is an article out there, guys, that Tottenham Hotspur are looking at a world-class goalkeeper. The Daily Mail put out an insight that Tottenham are looking at signing a world-class goalkeeper, which is... It's fascinating. I think a lot of us will probably sit there and say, yeah, Vicario can be improved upon, right? He's very, very good at shot stopping. He's very, very good at his instinctive side of his game, but some of the areas of his game that require a little bit less thoughtlessness and a little bit more kind of composure, he can struggle. Whether it's under the pressure of the press for clearance kicks, whether it's corner kicks, set pieces, those sorts of things, he can look a little bit shaky. And the Daily Mail is saying that we're moving to chase a world-class goalkeeper, which to me, is fascinating. We've just signed Antonin Kinsky. Maybe he's unhappy because he was promised more minutes than he's probably got. So maybe he is sitting there thinking, well, I don't want to wait around any longer. He's only 22, I think he is now. So you've got plenty of time on his side. But of course, when he was playing his previous club, he was first choice starter. So it doesn't matter how old you are. Once you've tasted the first 10 minutes, you don't want to give them up. Who would we go for in that case, right? I think there's a couple of names that are out there that would be considered, possibly world-class in that world. Mike Maignan of AC Milan, he's out of contract in the summer. He was maybe going to leave in the summer and go to Chelsea. That didn't materialise. Top draw goalkeeper. I wouldn't say he's world-class, but he's definitely one of the better keepers that are out there. Solid, reliable, dependable, great shot stopping, capable with the ball at his feet. And he's an all-round solid goalkeeper, you know. Sort of think of like a I don't know. I always think like a Kasper Schmeichel is just like a solid all-round goalkeeper, big presence, good at shot stopping, doesn't really let you down. He's not world class, but he's good at all of the different dependencies that goalkeepers need to be. And I'd say that Mike Maignan is one of those. The other one, of course, is Anders ter Stegen, the Barcelona player, part of the leadership group at Barcelona in the relatively recent past, but has been frozen out once again and isn't getting any minutes at all. And his continued stay at Barcelona surely looks like it's coming to an end. Will he leave in January? I don't know. Possibly. I'd love to see him. I think he's better than what we have for sure. It just begs the question around what would happen to Anton Kinsky and what would happen to Vicario. Vicario is part of the leadership group. So the story seems a little bit far-fetched to me. It's part of the leadership group only as of a couple of months ago, and then we're bringing in someone to demote him. I'm not sure. I'd also say it's not a priority. We've got far bigger fish to fry than that. And the only other sort of note for you from that Daily Mail article was about Dusan Vlahovic. The report said that the Paratici factor makes me think they will at the very least check out what's happening with Vlahovic, whose contract at Juve expires in June. His situation has changed slightly since Luciano Spalletti replaced Igor Tudor as boss. Spalletti says he wants to keep Vlahovic and would like him to sign a new deal, but the 25-year-old Serb is on big wages worth $10 million a year after tax, and a free transfer in the summer would be hugely lucrative for him. If Spurs can afford to pay him what he's asking for, then this deal, either in January or in the summer, feels at this stage a more viable option than Ivan Toney, who has been the subject of a lot of speculation because of his links to Thomas Frank. Toney at 29 would jar with Tottenham's policy of recruiting younger players with scope to develop, and his inflated Saudi wages would make him potentially more expensive than Vlahovic. Listen, I don't think that Ivan Toney will come. I've said this to you guys before many times. I think that the financial thing is just too weird, too problematic. And on top of that, even if there was a way to do it on loan, I still don't understand why Al Ali would be on board that notion at all. And they've come out, or they've intimated that they've made that clear as well, that there's no benefit for him leaving unless he was to throw his toys out of the pram. But I don't see why he would do that. You know, why bite the hand that feeds you so unbelievably well? Listen, guys, I think that is about that for today. It's been a long video. I do apologize, but please, if you have made it this far, then please smash the like button. Again, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. And also, this video will be up on Spotify and Apple Pods and all that stuff just as soon as it's on YouTube. So if you're watching it here now, it's probably on Spotify already as well. So if you are that kind of, if you go that way towards podcast platforms, then check us out. Give us a 5-star rating if you don't mind. And, of course, a follow. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.